Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in on time and welcome to Fundraising Friday webinar. The main purpose of Fundraising Friday webinar is to build a community for knowledge sharing and knowledge enhancement about fundraising. Danamojo is India's first payment solution platform specifically designed for NGOs, and we are a community of 900 plus NGOs now. Danamojo provides a holistic payment solution which reduces the cost, time, and effort spent by NGOs on fundraising. To understand the features of Danamojo better, let's look into a video. Yeah, welcome again to Fundraising Friday webinar. I am Namita Hulla. I'm the Community and Engagement Manager at Dana Mojo. Today's session, we are going to talk about donor communication calendar. The plan of the session is, first we would start with the basic of donor communication. Then we would together build the calendar. And then at the end of the session, we'll open up the forum for questions if you have any. Now, since we are going to build the calendar together, it would be great if you can put your videos on and make the session more lively and interactive. Please go ahead and switch your videos on. Yeah, thank you very much. Now, before jumping on to the session, I want to take 2 minutes to talk about a new initiative from Dana Mojo, which is Dana Avas, Voice of NGO. This initiative we came up in order to summarize or to understand the issues and concerns which NGOs are facing in their day-to-day working. This would be in form of a micro survey, the survey with 1, 2, or 3 questions, and then we would summarize and aggregate it and make it available to the public or the persons who are interested in it. So the first one we have taken up regarding the FCRA Amendments Act of 2020. And here I'm giving in the link of that survey. Please make sure you raise your opinion through this survey. And India Development Review has agreed to take on an article on this if we receive a survey of 300 NGOs. You could click on the link, it will open up in a new window, and then whenever your time permits, please make sure you take part in this survey. Thank you. Now, without further delay, let's get into the webinar and let's get into our topic. Yeah, if you could just give me a thumbs up if the screen is visible. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, communication. Whenever I hear the word communication, this quote from Franklin Roosevelt comes to my mind. He says, a good relationship starts with a good communication. Isn't that true? Be it a personal relationship or our professional relationship, smooth communication is a foundation of good relationship. There is a good communication, we have nice work going. There is a problem with the communication, then there is a disaster waiting to happen. The same holds good with our relationship with the donor. Same holds good with our donor communication. So anything and everything that you do in order to keep your donors updated about your work, keep in touch with the donor, comes under donor communication. So donor communication is any activity in which an NGO communicates with donors, including both established donors and the potential donors. And mind you, the main purpose of donor communication is not asking for donations, but it is to build a strong relationship with the donor and later get more donations. But the basic focus for us with the communication is to build relationship and get donor engaged with our activities. Building a strong relationship with donors and keeping them engaged with the donor's good work is the basic purpose of donor communication. Why do you think donor communication is important? To answer this question, let's first become donors for the next 2 minutes. So I am a donor now, and I have donated maybe 5,000 or 10,000 to an NGO, which I relate to. The work which that NGO does is what I am concerned about. So just after the donation, I get a thank you email. And after a month or so, I get an update from this NGO telling what my donation has done to the community. How do I feel? I feel really, I get that pleasant feeling. I get the feeling that, yes, I am capable of doing something good to the society. Though no, I don't have time to look into the matters, but through my money, I am able to bring about a change in the society. So the effect of communication could be tangible or intangible. In intangible part of it, it increases the self-worth of the donor. It's a very good feeling to have. Then increases the publicity of the NGO. Now, when donor feels good, he goes and talks about your good work to his friends, families, colleagues, thus spreading a word about the NGO. And then a goodwill about the NGO is developed in the community. People talk good about the NGO. Next, on the tangible part of the communication effect is the engagement. Donor feels one with the NGO. Donor feels that he is also a part of the NGO. He is also a part of doing good to the society. Donor retention. He comes back with probably more donations, or he becomes an attraction for other donation when he spreads across a good word about the NGO. Few statistics around it. 71% of the donors say personalized notes from nonprofit make them feel more engaged. There was a research done by Network for Good. It said that 41% of donors would engage if they received personalized communication on the impact of the donation of their support. 39% said they would give again if they received an email or a text communication stating the impact. 34% said they would give again if they received a swift thank you for the donation. Key contributors for retaining the donors is the automated payment method and the communication throughout. Here, I want to focus on the throughout part of the communication. It is not only that we send a thank you email as soon as the donation is credited, but we keep the communication channel open. We keep the communication open throughout, whenever possible. So this is a major part of our communication. So throughout the world, they employ few retention strategies. That is, strategies to retain the donor and to get more donations from the donor. I have listed off main strategies. Okay, you could take 2 minutes to go through these strategies. Yes. Now, out of them, I have marked the retention strategies which are related to communication. What do we observe? We observe that 5 out of 8 strategies are related to communication. It says, share your result, send donors a personalized thank you note, schedule donor-centric events, connect with them through social media, make your donors feel irreplaceable. So when 5 out of 8 strategies are related to communication, I'm sure by now you're convinced that donor communication is very critical. But how do we do donor communication? What are the channels that we utilize? We know there is a plethora of channels that we could employ to reach to our donor communication donors. So we have listed down few of them and listed down the pros and cons of these channels also. To start with, our own website. Our website can be the best place and also can act as a repository for all our updates, for all the good work we have done. But how do we drive traffic to our website? Also, how do we motivate our donors to visit all the pages which are present in the website? Second channel is our telephonic conversations. Yes, the donor would feel very valued, very important, and very respected. But isn't it very labor intensive to call donors every day, 50 to 60 donors, and then talk to them and then convince them about our work? Also, few times donors may feel irritated because of the timing of the call. Thirdly, our social media. I know everybody is active on social media and it takes really less time and it's very easy to post on the social media. But there are so many platforms now and requires a critical decision for the type of post to match with the type of the media. Now we have to take our time and take our experience into consideration while deciding which communication item has to go into which social media. also takes a lot of effort in maintaining all these platforms. Next, organizing events. Again, like the telephonic call, donors really feel that they are important, they're respected, and they have made some changes, brought about some changes in the community. But again, organizing events is very labor intensive. Organize the logistics, send the reminders, make sure that the donors attend the events. But again, these days, there is a concept of virtual events which could reduce the labor, reduce the effort, but again, the effort is substantial. Also, due to COVID situation, we are not able to have the physical events. Lastly, the email channel. Email is one channel with which we could send a personalized communication to the mass audience. It is also cost effective and very easy to send. Only con over here is the organization has to develop the skill to draft emails such that it catches the reader's attention. Now that we have looked into the channels and we have an idea of how to make use of these channels, I want to take you into the communication item itself. Now, how do we draft the communication item? Now, this I came across while doing some research, and I love this sentence. It says, donor communication is a love letter to donors, woven with clear request for help. Such a beautiful thought, isn't it? It's a love letter you write to your donors, but your message in that communication is clear and is indirectly or directly request for help. Going deeper into that, a communication item has to be personal. Now imagine one email which I get as a donor, which tells, dear donor, our NGO has helped 300 children to go to school. Versus one more email which I get, dear Namita, with your donation, 3 children were able to go to school this month. Which one would I prefer as a donor? I would prefer the second one, isn't it? So the tone of the message, tone of the communication item has to be personal. There is this research that says personal tone increased the donation by 145%. Next, relate to the donor as a friend, not as a boss, not as a third person. It would be as if you're talking to your friend who's just sitting next to you and communicating it to you. This would come with the mindset when we understand that donor is also related, also relates to our cause on which we are working on. Next, honesty. As they say, honesty is the best one to do. Donors really do understand that the changes cannot be brought about overnight. So there is no need to build a big picture about our NGO's work. A small step taken towards the goal would really make donors happy. So there is no need for that mirch or that tadka or that little masala in the email. Clear message, clear ask. Now, it's during a study, it was shown that online readers do not read again. It's only the surfing that they do across the email or the message that they get. So our message should be such that one read through the sentence reaches the goal. So the satire, sarcasm does not hold good in any message, clearly with the ask also. The simple message produced 80% more donation compared to the one with the videos, images, links. This is with respect to the email that had just one image and complete text and one donate button. Simple messages received 80% more click-through rate. Finally, every communication has to be donor-centric. It is always you, and you, and not I, my NGO, we did this. It is always what the donation of the donor has done to the community. Moving on. Why should we have a donor calendar? Now, before discussing why should we have a donor calendar, I want to know how many of you already have a donor calendar. I'm just starting a poll here. Please, yes, please let me know if you already have a donor calendar or you're thinking of doing one. Ten of you, please go ahead and answer. It's just yes or no, and I really want to know if you have a calendar or not. 10 more seconds. Okay. And here is the result. I am happy that 36% of you already have a calendar. I'm also subtly happy that 63% of you do not have. I'm sure at the end of this session, you would at least have an idea of how to fill in a calendar and will be enough motivated to work on that calendar now. Thank you for answering the poll. Moving on. Why do we need a donor calendar? Yes, donor calendar would stop us from sending too many or too less communication. Now, if we have a calendar setup that first would be this one, second would be this one, we have a track of how much of communication is going to the donor. It would stop us from being very lazy to send or being too energetic to send it. Next, the entire team remains on the same page. Now, if you have a communication team, this communication calendar could act as a plan for the communication. But if you are a single man army, one man army, then on an organization level, it would give an idea of how we are communicating to the donor, what are the channels that we are using, and other perspective of the donor communication. Organized and focused. Yes, when we have a calendar, we are organized. But when we sit and think about a calendar, we would also have to think about the focus of about the goal of the communication. We will talk about the goal later. But when we build a calendar with a particular goal in mind, the whole of the communication process is focused on that particular goal. Stop, repeat of stories. Now, when we think of writing a story, then if we do not have a calendar, we'll have to go back to our emails, check if that story has already been covered, maybe 6 months back, maybe a year back. And then if we don't find, then there are chances that we repeat the story. But donor calendar stops us from repeating the stories. Finally, it gives us a chance to think about communication. Otherwise, if we are randomly doing communication, we don't really put in time at that on the communication perspective. But if we are sitting today, spending some time on the communication calendar, it gives us a chance as an organization to think through the process of donor communication, think about the goal of the donor communication. Yes. Now, let us start building our calendar. To start with, I would want you to think about what items can get into the donor communication calendar. What I could think of is a beneficiary story can go, a donor story can go, an organizational update about a program can get into my communication. Let's spend some 2 minutes on thinking about what can be a communication item. Keeping in mind, it says that 75% of donors may stop donating to an organization based on a poor content, vague content, dull content, irrelevant content, and inconvenient formatting. Now, whatever idea comes up in your mind, please feel free to put it in the chat. that could go as a communication item. Like I said, a donor story, a beneficiary story, an impact story of program one, or things like that. Please go ahead and put in your thoughts in the chat. No thoughts. I know you would be able to think for sure. Uh, yes, testimonials. Testimonials of whose testimonials do you want to send to donors? Mr. Ravindra, whose testimonials do you want to send? Yes, to show them the impact of grassroots level. Beneficiary story. Yes, beneficiary story is most important. Progress of the programs. Yes, impact. Yes. Yes, progress of the project from time to time. How a student of our course did something unusual, got a research paper published. Right, it's one of the impact of the beneficiary. Right, any other thoughts? Any other thoughts that can go as a communication item? Right, as well the challenges that we face. That's true. That's the problems that you face that could motivate the donors to maybe become a volunteer from a donor, or maybe help in whatever capacities of the donor. Right. When moving on, when I thought about the items, these were the things that I came up with. And we would be sharing this PPT for your reference later. Along with our recording, we will be sharing this PPT. Right. These are the things which I came up with. Communication item could be a founder story, a beneficiary story, beneficiary impact story, volunteer or supporter story, or founding story, a donor story, program update, as you all told, new CSR or funder partnership, a day in a life of a beneficiary, donor giving story, prizes, recognitions, events, or any significant achievements, community impact story, community impact update, tax saving. March is coming. It's the good time to talk about tax saving. Sectoral news relevant to your cause or community, volunteering opportunities, donor impact story, beneficiary giving back story, a donor visit story. Oof, so many of them, right? So let's categorize these items. When we tried to categorize, the first category that came into our mind was your own story. This would be the story of persons associated with your NGOs, your founders, your partners, your beneficiaries, your donors, your volunteers, the stories related to their life. Second category is your sector or your organization. Donors really do not have time to look into what the education sector is going through, or what the women's welfare sector is going through. But if you have a real news or an update, donor would be more than interested in knowing that update. Organizational update. Organization update would be finding a new partner, or the progress we have done, or the fundraising event that we have taken up. Thirdly, the festival and seasonal wishes. Fourthly, the NGO programs, the programs that we undertake and the updates about them. Now, again, in all of them, our intention is to build a strong relationship with the donor and not only to solicit donation from them. Moving further, the items which we found in the other slide, we are categorizing them on the categories now. First thing, in your story, since we are talking about the persons, since we're talking about the people with my organization, we would have founder story, beneficiary story, beneficiary impact story, volunteer and supporter story, a day in a life of a beneficiary, donor giving story, donor fundraising story, donor visit story, and staff connect story. So this makes up my first category, that is our story or your story. My 2A category, that is about the sector or about the community with which we are working. First one, community impact story. Now, once I have introduced the impact, I would always have a chance to tell an update about that impact. Then, relevant sectoral news, any updates that are related to this sector. Beneficiary giving back to the community story. Now, when beneficiary is impacted, obviously there will be some changes within the community. The story about how the beneficiary has brought about the change in the community. Donor impact story, how the donation has brought about the change, and the staff impact story. The next category, about the organization, new funder or CSR partnership. That's a major milestone with respect to our organization. So we update the donor about the new partnership that we have. Volunteering opportunities. So this is a place where the donor would be most interested in. Prizes, recognition, and events. Fundraising campaign updates, or founding story. Why was the organization found? What are the mission, vision? Tax saving and festival giving. Now that we have categorized our communication items into the respective buckets, now only task left is in our calendar, on a week-on-week basis, we will put items with respect to the categories. And at the end of it, ta-da, our calendar is ready. Just take 2 minutes to go through this calendar. Yes, as we can see, the categories are put against the week. So first week, we are going to talk about the our story. Sorry, yeah. Second week, we are going to talk about the community or the sector story. Third week, the organization story. And the fourth week is left to the individual projects or the programs of your organization. Now, again, you see that the month of March and June are colored differently. Here is the difference of explicit and implicit ask. As told earlier, our purpose of communication is not only to ask for donation. The once in a, it's considered a best practice to explicitly ask once in a quarter. Other communications would be to keep the donors updated about our work. And yes, we would have a donation button somewhere in the communication, but we do not explicitly ask for a donation. But once in a quarter, that is once in March and once in June and later on, we put in a story such that we ask them for donation. Now, in the tax saving in the month of March, we say that if you donate now, your tax will be saved. Have an explicit donation button and encourage donors to donate to them. Again, if this feels too much, that 1 week, every week, a type of communication, we could start with having one communication item in 1 month. So all 4 of them, you pick one communication item, maybe founder's story for the first month. So in 1 month, I'm sending one founder's story. I'm sending one communication only, so that our donors are updated about my NGO's work. So 4 is the best one. Every week we send one communication, but if it feels a lot, we should at least make sure that one communication per month has to be followed. This is the calendar from Jan to June, and here is the calendar from July to December. Take 2 minutes to look into this. Okay. Now, as you can see, in Jan to in Jan to June, in the 4th week, we have talked about programs. Here, we have introduced the programs to the donors, and in the later months, we are talking about the updates of that program. As said earlier, minute to minute updates holds good in donors' eyes. Moving on, let's look into every communication item and just check on what can get into every item there. Now, when I say founder story, we could include background of the founder, early life of the founder, incidents that inspired the founder, inspired him or her to work towards that cause. Founder's passion. What is the passion of the founder? And what are the initial challenges faced by the founder, and if there are any support received by the founder, or is it a group of people? This is about one founder and what triggered him to establish this organization. Beneficiary story. Location and background of the beneficiary, his environment, his circumstances in the community or in the place. Now, when we talk about the location and background of the beneficiary, it makes a lot of impact if donor can relate to that location. So mentioning the location and the background or the community of the beneficiary is very important. Employment or salary details of the beneficiary, family, his children, his people around him. If any special talent that he has, why does he need the help of the donor? Beneficiary impact story. Now, this is about, the previous one was about what are the situation of the beneficiary. Now, here we talk about what our changes have brought about change in the beneficiary's life. So, what we covered in the previous item, we mentioned in a small summary here, and then talk about how our NGO has helped the beneficiary. How has his or her life changed due to the work of the NGO? How has his environment changed? How has his family changed? How has his surroundings changed? Any indirect impact, if it has, maybe the changes in the family, maybe the changes with the education of his children, maybe the changes with the working with his working capacity, or any other indirect change that has happened. Now, coming to the donor giving story. A small, 1 or 2 sentences about the background of the donor. How was the donor introduced to this organization? How did he get into this organization? His first interaction with the organization. How was the donation of the donor utilized? How was it used? Now, if you could get a photo and 2 lines from the donor, that will be the best. Now, mostly donors are hesitant in such situation. They don't really want to come forward and then have their say. But testimonials are easy compared to the photos. So if you have the testimonials, that builds the credibility of the NGO. Now, after all the donation, after a long relationship, how does the donor relate to the organization? How does he feel about the organization? Now, okay. Now, donor fundraising story. Now, at times it happens that donor donates and then is responsible for fundraising from others too. Now, the same which we covered in the donor story, a brief about the donor, how was he introduced to the organization? Now, what made him, what motivated the donor to ask others and raise funds? Now, what did he do to raise funds? What are the things did he do? Did he go to the social media? Did he talk about to his friends, family, etc.? And how much of money, how much did he raise? And what was the effect? How does he feel impact on the donor? Now, how does he feel about his association with the NGO? What are the, as we talked earlier, what are the intangible things that donor felt after this fundraising or after the donation? Moving on, volunteers and supporters story, location and the background of the volunteer. How did he feel? Why did he get the feeling of volunteering? Why he wanted to volunteer? His first interaction with the organization. What did he do as a volunteer? What are the tasks that he completed as a volunteer? What impact did those tasks have? What was the feeling at the end? What was the feeling on the volunteer side because of this volunteership? This impact on the donor, impact on the supporter, impact on the volunteer are the most neglected part of the communication, but that should be given importance, that because it is the sole purpose with which those people have that action done, volunteering, supporting or donating, is because of that feeling, or that because of that satisfaction with which they undertake these activities. Yeah. Moving on, donor visit story. Background of the visit, details of the beneficiary who is entertaining this visit, details of the donor, sequence of events that took place during this visit. Now, again, visit is a mutual one. So, how did the donor feel about the visit? How did the beneficiary feel about the experience of this visit? And testimonials and photos, if possible. Next, community impact story. Background of the community. This is very important so that the donors relate to the cause. Program undertaken for the community by the NGO. What are the tasks? What are the activities that the NGO is doing for this community? Now, programs and then activities. Individual activities if you want to focus on, or the general program that you want to focus on. Direct impact on the community. What are the changes that you have brought about? Indirect impact on the community. There would be definitely one or two indirect impact that we can mention in the communication. New CSR, moving on to the organization updates from the sectoral updates. New CSR or the funder partnership. The basic of this communication is to build the authenticity of the NGO. When we say to the donors that we have got a partnership from a CSR, that would build that would authenticate our work, that would build a confidence in the work that NGO is doing. So for that, we would talk about the background of the new partner. How is the partnership going to help you with the mission? Is there any other impact other than the mentioned areas which are getting a boost due to this partnership? Now, moving on, organization founding story. This is in continuation with the founder story. Now here, if we have a group of partners, how can we, how did the story start? How did they get together and think about building this NGO to bring about a change? Details of the partners then, and if they have changed now. Mission and vision of the organization. What is the primary purpose of this organization? Initial challenges faced. What are the challenges faced while finding, while founding this? What are the difficulties faced? Any support that was received by the founders? And most important, the first impact made. It's always near and dear to the founders, the first impact that they would have made. So highlighting them over here would make donors relate to the NGO. Volunteering opportunities. This is to encourage the donor build a relationship with the NGO, the programs that need volunteers, activities that are expected out of the volunteers, timelines and the time, how much of time should the volunteers be spending on the work, impact that would be expected, why is that work important that the volunteers would do, indirect impact if there are any. Now, fundraising campaign updates. Before the fundraising campaign updates, the first thing to get in is the introduction of campaign updates. As we saw there, in our calendar, we should plan such that first we talk about introducing the campaign when we are starting it, and in the subsequent emails, we'll talk about the updates. In the updates, purpose of the campaign, target funds. Now, what is the purpose of this campaign? What is the target? Progress with the fundraising. Now, in case it is an update, we tell about this much of fund we have received and this much is still remaining. In case we have any champion fundraisers, the fundraisers which work on behalf of the NGO to raise funds, we highlight them so that they also feel more encouraged and motivated. Now, with the fund raised so far, if there are any beneficiaries who have been impacted, we highlight the impact also. Now, for the program updates, as we saw, the fourth week of every month is about programs and program updates. As we discussed earlier, you don't necessarily wait for your organization to complete a project to tell a story. A minute step further can also go as an update. So we talk about the aim of the program, activities that we take as a part of this program, progress achieved so far, any special moment, a small smile on a child, face of a child, funny experience, a small appreciation received from an old lady in a community can get into the donor communication. If we have any major milestone, that has to be really highlighted. Details of the fund. Now you could make it an explicit ask over here, or you could do an implicit ask by just mentioning the funds required or the funds needed for the program. There are few things that we have to take care while planning our calendar. One, first step would be easier to plan for 12 months. So now we are at the end of February. If you spend half a day today, let's plan it from March to 2022 February so that we have enough time to put in all the communication items. Be flexible. There are few things which are not under our control. So it's always flexible. You don't have any update with program number 1 this week. So you put in program number 2, or flexibility is the key over here. Next, stay on track. Once the calendar is set, we should try our best to follow that calendar. It should not be that, okay, the calendar is set and I will do my own communication. So it helps us in achieving our goals. Once in 6 months, the calendar has to be reviewed so that we can have tweaks in that, so that it makes more impression and reaches more donors. Now, when we write this communication, when we think of writing the communication, there are few things which can make it more impactful to the donors. One is writing intentionally. So what can be our intentions? Our intentions could be to raise funds or grow membership, explain a problem to the donor, or increase their visit to the website, thank the donor, or inspire loyalty and trust. So when we think of a calendar, when we sit and think about the communication item, we have to first set the intention or first set the goal. With the goal focus, we can then plan for our communication items. Next, activate empathy. So empathy is a feeling of, it's a motivation to act. To activate empathy, we could activate by using the emotional vocabulary. Emotional vocabulary would mean the words which signify the feeling, like apprehensive, overjoyed, thrilled, regretful, hesitant, vulnerable. We usually hesitate to use such words. We get into numbers, we get into graphs, we get into pie chart and things like that. But for the donors, donors are more inclined towards the feeling part of the communication. And establish a hero in your story as much as possible. Maybe it's a founder, maybe it's the beneficiary, maybe it's the supporter. If you work on a communication item focusing on the hero, that's more impactful for the donors. Make a connection. Now, donor is always looking for a connection with the NGO. So you should help him with respect to that. Now, there was a campaign done by a NGO which works with the sharks, which works with the reserve of sharks. They could make, we cannot really relate to donating to that because I'm sitting in this corner of the world. How do I relate to that shark reservoir there? So there was this communication which told that you save 1 spoon of water per day. In an year, you could you could save a shark in their reserve. So help donors to relate to the cause which you are working on. Here, I have put few stories that could inspire you with writing your own stories. Just take 2 minutes to look into this communication, which was sent by World Wildlife. Here they're talking about the snow leopard cubs. Look into the emotional vocabulary that they have used. Look into the implicit ask they have done here. Look into the personalization of the communication. This is a personalized, simple, clear email. It is just one word and just one picture and the content. I'm sure the donors would be at the end, after reading this mail, would be motivated to click and act with this regard. Just one more here. This is about a gifting opportunity from Deki NGO of South Africa. This they're talking about the gifts in the Christmas time, which is very personal to every donor. I want you to see this video. This is an inspirational video which talks about the volunteers' experience of volunteering.
Hello, I'm Molly Fallon.
Hi, I'm Tom Fallon. Molly and I got to load the top part of the dumpster today. We had all this roofing, sheet metal. We were assigned to work together to do that with the help of our team leader, Dylan. It's fun to work with somebody, especially your own wife, that was very fulfilling. Yeah, we did it and did it well, I think. Yeah.
I've learned all sorts of things during my time here. We've learned that we can live with 80 other people in a small space. We've learned that people are very adaptable.
I'm sorry, I think I have to share the screen. Just give me 1 minute.
Hello, I'm Molly Fallon.
Hi, I'm Tom Fallon. Molly and I got to load the top part of the dumpster today. We had all this roofing, sheet metal. We were assigned to work together to do that with the help of our team leader, Dylan. It's fun to work with somebody, especially your own wife, that was very fulfilling. Yeah, we did it and did it well, I think. Yeah.
I've learned all sorts of things during my time here. We've learned that we can live with 80 other people in a small space. We've learned that people are very adaptable, the volunteers as well as the islanders.
Over this last month, it's been fantastic. The people we've met that have come and gone from all walks of life, all over the world, and it's just been unbelievable, an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, such a short and sweet video that can inspire volunteers, that can build credibility about the NGO's work. Now, yeah, about the question, if we don't have any videos from India, Akshay Patra's website is full of such motivating stories. You could visit that website to know more. Some food for thought. I would share one more video that I want you to listen to this video and then think about it.
Word.
Well, let's understand that when someone donates money to a charity, they're buying something. They're hiring that charity to solve a problem for them. The question we need to understand is, what are they buying? Too often we get hung up on the problem to be solved, the charts and the graphs and the urgency, right? That no, this time it's urgent. That's not what anyone buys ever. And when we talk about what we've done, when we talk about the charity we're supporting, what do we say? These come down to the story. And the story is, does it resonate with me? Does it
The
resonate?
video is not
Does it-
visible.
I believe I.
Okay, just 1 minute. Is it visible now, Dhaval?
Yes.
Word.
Well, let's understand that when someone donates money to a charity, they're buying something. They're hiring that charity to solve a problem for them. The question we need to understand is, what are they buying? Too often we get hung up on the problem to be solved, the charts and the graphs and the urgency, right? That no, this time it's urgent. That's not what anyone buys ever. And when we talk about what we've done, when we talk about the charity we're supporting, what do we say? These come down to the story. And the story is, does it resonate with me? Does it resonate with the person I believe I am and my place in society? A short way of saying it is this: people like us do things like this. And every successful charity is successful at the fundraising end because they have figured out how to be part of the culture, not all of the culture, a section of the culture, where people proudly say, of course I support them because people like us do things like this. And the mistake that we make, because our cause is so good, is that we skip all that and try to get to the facts. Guess what? No one looks at the facts when they buy a chocolate bar, they don't look at the facts when they buy a car, and they don't look at the facts when they make a donation.
Word.
Well, let's understand.
Nice. Wasn't it interesting? Nobody looks at the facts when they buy a chocolate. Nobody looks into the fact when they buy a car. Nobody looks into a fact when they do a donation. And that's all from me. This is the quote which I came across. There are two I's in fundraising. They should stand for inspiration and innovation, not imitation and irritation. If you have any questions, please shoot them in the chat. Yes. I would like to know, how did you feel about this session? And your feedback will take a long way in planning for next webinars. So I have sent a link about the feedback. Please give us your valuable feedback so that we can make the sessions better and better. Yes, I will share the recording, and we will share the recording and the presentation in the mail. Yes, Simran. I'll share the presentation through email. Like how we share the recordings of the every webinar through emails. Same way, I will share the presentation too. Our earlier webinar recordings can be found here. I'm sending in the link. So this is our 14th webinar. So all 13 webinars are available in that web page. Please access and make the best use of it. Yes, Vaswati ma'am, please go ahead.
Namita, thanks a lot for this one. For me, I think this was extra special because we are just planning this thing, this whole plan of donor communication. So it's come at a perfect time. And maybe that's why I felt it was extra special. But you had really covered everything point to point very beautifully, very nicely done. Uh, what I'd like to share with people is in this last few months, I attended another webinar on social media calendar planning. And I'm just realizing there's a lot in common that way. And it's about getting everything together, what you post there, what you post in donor communications. And overall, there's so much of structure that can be brought into all this. I really learned a lot, I think. That's what I'll say. Thanks so much.
Thank you, ma'am. About daily updates, just 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. About daily updates, I think that from a donor's perspective, daily update would be a little too much. As a yeah, as a donor, if we just think from the perspective of a donor, one, it would be an overdose of information if I get it daily, and also if there is no explicit ask, also there could be a aversion towards opening the email when I receive it daily. Yeah, drip communication is something like email communication or the communication passed on to the donor at a specified intervals so that we build a relationship with the donor. So it is like a small chunk of communication that goes at every interval to the donor, so that there is a goodwill or there is a good communication channel open between donor and the NGO. So we could plan it is okay in all circumstances, but basically in order to turn the donor from the cause donor, from the campaign donor to a cause donor. Now when we run campaigns, the donor becomes a campaign donor. He's interested only in that donor, but to engage him with our cause, we could plan for a certain set of communication which gets delivered to him regularly, and then he can relate to the NGO's work. Meenakshi ma'am?
Yeah. Thanks, Namita, for a very, very valuable and good session. Certainly got me thinking right in terms of planning communications. The constraint we face is that our mailing list is pretty big, right? And when we send out communications internally from our end, that takes a long time. So I know that the Dana Mojo sends the first thank you communication for every donation that we receive via Dana Mojo, but there's a whole lot more others. So would Dana Mojo be open to sending out mails to all our mailing list? Is there such a possibility with the Dana Mojo?
Okay, maybe I can take that question,
Yeah.
Ms. Nair.
Thanks,
So you,
Dhaval. Yeah.
sure. So you mentioned that it takes you a lot of time to send out emails because your donor list is large.
Yeah.
So how do you send out emails?
Actually, we send it out from our mailbox itself.
Okay,
We
how
have
many emails do you have?
we have a list of about 8,000 right now.
Okay. So we would suggest that you use a marketing tool.
Yeah.
I would suggest something like MailJet.
Mail,
MailJet.
JET.
Yeah, JET.
Okay.
You can
And
use.
would that, I mean, obviously the main thing there is that the mails shouldn't go into spam.
Yeah, so that requires some configuration to be done, which can reduce that possibility. It can never be a guarantee, but there are certain technical settings that can be done to reduce that possibility. So if you have a website person or a developer website person, he can help you set that up. But I think even at the very basic level, using a tool like MailJet is far better than using your own inbox. It
Yeah,
will
sure.
definitely reduce your spam to a significant extent just by using the tool. And then you can keep improving on that.
Okay. And obviously there is a charge to it.
Yeah, so MailJet I'm suggesting because it's one of the cheapest platforms.
Okay.
It will cost, I mean, if it costs about 700 rupees per month for 30,000 emails in a month.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So I think that should be fairly reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that would certainly make it easy for us. We tried a couple of such things earlier, but we found that the spam hadn't reduced. So useful to, if you know of MailJet and that it is good.
Yeah, we've been using MailJet for the last 5 years, and we find it the most cost-effective solution to send out emails.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dhaval. You also use it, you are saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I will take one more question that Vasumati has spoken about, saying, what is drip communication? So drip communication is a mechanism to slowly inform, let's say, your new donors about your organization. It's a mechanism wherein, for example, when a new donor signs up to your mailing list, you could probably send a thank you mail or a welcome mail. After 1 week, you can send them, a mail saying why you formed the organization. After another week, you can send them a mail talking a little bit about yourself. After another week, you send them a mail which talks about your programs. So it's basically sending, small chunks of information in drips. So essentially, whatever we've put down in the calendar, you could actually just make chunks of that, put it in, and keep sending this information out to your donors. There are so some of these mailing softwares have tools which allow you to do that itself. So you can use a MailChimp if you have less than 2,000 donors to also do it, and it can allow you saying, okay, as soon as the person signs up, first mail goes. After 7 days, second mail goes. After 14 days, third mail goes. So you can actually set it up and in a way, induct new donors into your organization. That's what drip communication is.
Yeah, if you are not with Dana Mojo and interested to know more about Dana Mojo, please fill in the inquiry form. I have put in the link in the chat box. Okay, I have one last poll for you all. I want to know, would you attend our next webinar?
No one is saying not likely. It's okay, you can say. We
Yeah.
won't know if you say, we won't know who it is. So please feel free to say it. Thank you, everyone, from my end.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Please access our recorded webinars too in case you want to go through them. And we'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you.